What is going on, my friends? It's good to see you guys. I've got a different kind of video coming at you today, walking you through a new pedal board build that I'm doing. Now, I am not the most technical guy out there. You're not going to see me running a huge MIDI system or anything like that. But I've got a few different pedals that I am throwing on this new board. Turns out I have a gig coming up soon. It's going to be a fly date. In times past, you've seen me using the neural quad Cortex, trying to change things up just a little bit with this board. You've heard me say things about the backline amps and how they're just not really reliable, and a lot of that is very it can be true a good portion of the time, but this board is also sort of going to have a built-in backup in case the backline amp sucks. So right now we're just I'm just going to kind of walk you guys through what I've got going on here. Everything is just sort of laid out on my couch. I don't have a workbench or anything like that set up, but I'll show you guys what we are working with here. So let's jump on in. So let me just walk through what we've got going on here as far as equipment is concerned. I got this Temple audio board actually in a trade. I've always been interested in them, and I believe this is the Duo 24. The thing about this is it's so lightweight, has this kind of stabilization bar, but I think the reason most people really love these things is they have the ability to add modules on the side. I've actually got an input-output module. It has the power on there as well. It comes with a switch on top, but just connects to the power supply really simply. So let me walk you guys through kind of what we have here pedal-wise. I don't know exactly where everything is getting laid out yet. I do have a general idea. But of course, with any build, you're going to have to kind of evaluate where is the most convenient, where does it make sense to put in the chain, all that stuff. So first things first, you got to have a tuner. This is the JHS Whitey Tighty. I just really love this compressor. It's also a good conversation piece. A lot of times, it's not every day you see a pair of briefs on a guitar pedal. I would say don't buy a compressor if it doesn't have a blend. I've got the JHS Prestige Boost. You guys know I'm a JHS fan. You know, I love what they do with their channel. I love what they do with their pedals even more. Power supply wise, I am going with the Strymon Zuma. Another JHS pedal coming at you here. This is the JHS AT Plus. This is kind of like a Marshall in a box kind of thing, and I think it just sounds ridiculous. All right, Digitech Drop. So am I a cheater? Maybe a little bit, but this pedal is a lifesaver. A brief explanation as to why I have this pedal is because, like most other people that I see who are using this, a lot of times people will record guitar parts with a guitar that's a half step down. And in country music especially, or in pop music, it's all about playing the part. It's not really about coming up with something that's close to the part. It's about playing the part. So the Drop will just help me to get anything that needs to be that half step down without me having to carry another guitar. We have the Strymon BlueSky, amazing pedal. You guys know what it is with the Boss. This is new to me. Got the HX1 from line 6. I literally have not even powered this on yet. I have dog hair on it. That's really good, but it looks clean, you know. I'm really stoked to get into this. There's a lot going on in this pedal. I'm going to be able to cover a lot of ground if I need to. This is going to be my fuzz pedal. This is going to be my phaser. It's going to be my rotary. It's going to be flanger, chorus. Here's another thing that's new to me. The Browne Amplification Protein. The right side is supposed to be like a Nobels ODR1. The left side is supposed to be a blues breaker. Silent switches. Gotta love that. The boring part, got a Dunlop volume pedal. And then last but not least, the other thing that's very new to me is ToneX. So this is sort of my backup for the backline amp situations. I'm gonna be loading my own stuff into this. I'm gonna profile a couple of my amps and cabs and all that stuff. Stoked to get this all kind of situated on the board. Let's figure out a layout, because that definitely ain't it. Let's jump into it. Here is what I think the general layout is going to be Might need to make a couple tweaks from there. I'm not one for like the aesthetic of a pedal board. I'll be honest, I don't usually love flipping the pedal sideways, but with the ToneX, it's either going to be an on or an off kind of thing. I will never be doing any tap dancing with that. I'm not using it for any sort of like pedal models anyway, you know, like which it does have the capability to do overdrive and all that stuff if you load that up. That's not what I'm using it for. I'm just going to be using it for an amp sim if I were to need it. So I think this is looking good for me right now. The drop has to be my very first thing that I hit. I find that if I don't hit it first, my latency starts to get a little bit worse. The tuner can be out of reach. I don't really need to ever hit that. I'm not a compression on and off kind of person. I always have it on. So I will not be, you know, tap dancing with that thing at all. Same deal for the ToneX. And everything else is pretty generally accessible. Also, this is just a side note. I'm a bigger fan of running a boost into my overdrives as opposed to having a boost after my overdrives. I see some people do both. You know, for me, I like it adding extra gain, and then I set my volume low enough on here. Like I'm not really adding any volume with my overdrives most of the time. And then my amps aren't set high enough to where they're really crunching up at all. I'm a clean amp person. So, you know, if I hit some volume from my boost even before my overdrive, I still get more volume as well. So it's kind of best of both worlds for me. More gain, more volume. I think that's the layout. I'm definitely not getting all this done today. I just wanted to kind of take you guys along with me as I get started. I will check back in when it is time to wire this sucker up. Okay, so we are back for kind of round 2 on this pedal board. So far, it's the next day, next morning. You know, I'm having to break this up just because it's hard to find a ton of time just all kind of put together where I have the ability to really like knock this thing out. Hoping to get a good chunk taken care of here over the next little bit. In the meantime, before I started making this video, a couple things that I did. I went ahead and mounted the power supply underneath because that's a little bit boring. Nobody really needs to see that. Some of the pedals had Velcro on them. I'm not using Velcro, I'm using dual lock. So I went ahead, took off the Velcro that was on there, have dual lock on everything. Kind of a pro tip, if you even want to call it that. With the dual lock is strong enough to where it can be a really big pain when you're trying to take it off. So what I've done is I have cut all the squares, I put them on the back of the pedals. I've went ahead and attached the dual lock that's going to be on the board. It's not attached to the board as of now. It's just already attached to the pedals on the locking side. The adhesive side still has the cover on it, so it's not going to be sticking to anything yet. With this board, one of the biggest problems I can foresee is that the holes where the cables are big enough to be able to run underneath are placed in certain areas. It's very different than something like a pedal train, but something like this, the holes are placed in very specific places. So if you're wanting to run things underneath, you kind of have to have pedals placed in certain areas. So what my plan of action is going to be, I'm going to run all my patch cables. I'm going to run all of my power cables. I'm not going to tie anything down or anything like that right now. I'm not going to stick the adhesive side to the board until I have all that stuff taken care of. And then after everything is ran, I'm going to go back and I will just remove the cover for the adhesive part of the dual lock. So that's the plan of action right now. Hopefully that all works out. I'm using an absolute insane assortment of patch cables that I have just had laying around. Some of these are ones that I've made. Some of them are D'Addario. Some of them are, I don't even know what else. Some of them were the EBS flat patch cables. I have a throwback lava cable, patch cable. Yeah, so I've got tons and tons of stuff here, so I should be able to make it all work. And we'll try to knock this thing out. Okay, so that took a long time, man. I mean, maybe I just felt like it took a long time, but I'm interested to go back and look at the time code on this video because I felt like that took a while. You know, kind of what I was saying earlier turned out to be totally true. As far as the spots on the board where cables are able to run through is just so annoying, if I'm being honest. Really hate that about this board. Upside, I've got all of the dual lock stuck down. I've got power ran. I flipped it over, got everything plugged into the power supply. I'm not going to do any cable ties or anything like that right now. My main goal is just to hopefully watch this thing power on. Another thing that I did not show you guys is I actually got that input-output module set up on the side, and that is also routed. I'm not even testing any sounds right now. I'm gonna save some of that for a later time for you guys. Let's power this baby on and see what happens. Moment of truth, you can see I've got like cables like dangling out and all that good stuff. Again, I'm gonna tie all that stuff down once I make sure that it is working properly. But let's see if we get power. Here we go. Would you look at that? That makes me feel good. You know, the volume pedal's passive, so I know I don't really need to worry about that, but I am happy about that. That it honestly feels like a load off my mind a little bit, but again, the true test is going to be checking the sound. Okay, so next step is going to be getting these cables tied down. Like I said before, I'm going to make sure signal's passing through it. I'm not talking about like getting stuff dialed in and checking tones and all that stuff. I'm talking about, are all the pedals working? If the answer to that is yes, I'll go ahead and tie everything down, and then dialing sounds in will be a thing that happens in the future. So let's do it. All right, we are several days later, and I am finally getting around to just, you know, straightening up the bottom of this board, doing some things on top just to really lock down a couple cables. There's not a whole lot of stuff I'm gonna have to do on top of the board, but there is a kind of a decent amount that I'll have to do on the bottom of the board, just making sure that cables are tied down. They're not gonna get caught on the case. You know, I want it to be kind of clean. I don't want stuff to be just going anywhere. So kind of boring stuff, but it is what it is. So let's do it. Not a whole lot of work on the top of the board. Sorry, I'm trying to keep my shadow out over here, but not a whole lot of work needed to be done on top of the board. You can see I put a couple zip ties there. I put one somewhere else. Oh yeah, right over here just to hold this guy down. But honestly, the top of the board was looking pretty good. I guess I actually put one over here as well. This cable is probably one I'm gonna need to replace at some point. It's one of the ones I soldered. I know it's a good cable. It works great. But you know, it's one of the problems when it comes to like trying to make do with stuff that you got on hand already, and not making cables to exact lengths for a board and all that stuff. So that guy is a little sketchy. I still trust it, but definitely that angle there is not making me the most comfortable. Let's check out the bottom side. The bottom is a little bit of a different story. I know what you guys are probably thinking, like, dude, that does not look organized, it doesn't look whatever. Honestly, organization was not necessarily my goal. It was more so I wanted to have everything sort of wrangled in a you know, just basically not have cables just hanging out of the bottom of the board. You know, I don't really love the idea of, like, if I'm throwing it in a case or even moving it around on stage, like trying to place it or whatever, the idea of cables just sort of dangling and all that stuff. A couple things to note: when it comes to doing zip ties and stuff on the bottom of your board, don't just tighten those things to oblivion. Make sure that they have a little leeway. I'm not saying they should be loose, but I am saying there's no real need to be absolutely just like cranking down on your cables. If anything, I would assume that would cause some strain and all that good stuff. A couple other things to note: I'm using this splitter here, and works great. This is specifically running off to the tuner and the compressor. So the tuner is not even necessarily like in my chain, it's just coming out of the tuner out on the volume pedal. So noise wise, I'm not worried about it. And then the compressor is an always on thing, but again, I have never had trouble doing that. Anytime I've had a board where I have ran a splitter, I usually try to do my compressor and my tuner, and it always works great. Now, my main issue with this right now is, again, I just don't love, there's not a whole lot of extra length going on with that. Now, I've got this one zip tied down here, so this cable is not really going anywhere. Like, it's definitely in there. But, you know, again, making do with what I have on hand at the moment, and especially considering the fact that I now have a few gigs earlier than expected, this thing just needs to be giggable. One of the things I want to complain about with these Temple audio boards, just maybe one of the dumbest things I have actually ever seen when it comes to this power module that they have here. Why in the world is this not a right angle plug? It does not make any sense to me at all. I cannot understand that. In order to get it as far enough over here as I need, I definitely have it squished up a little bit. I don't know if you guys can really see that all too well, but I've definitely got it squished up a bit, but I also have it tied down, so hopefully it's not going to go anywhere. But again, I hate the idea of putting that much strain on the cable itself, but in this particular circumstance, in order to get the Zuma underneath this Temple board, I had to do that. That's probably the thing I hate the most about their whole system right now, is the fact that that power module can't have a right angle plug on it. Love the in and out on this module. It's, what is that called? The 2X mod. It just came with the trade for this board. So I know it's not the cleanest looking thing. It's not impressive. Regardless of whatever kind of pedal board setup you've got going, make sure your cables are somewhat organized, in that, like, they're just not dangling out everywhere. It's just, I feel like you're just kind of asking for it when it comes to moving stuff in and out of cases at a gig or whatever it is. All right, guys, that is all I have for you. I'm looking forward to getting this board plugged in, seeing what everything sounds like. You know, I've tested all these pedals individually. I know how they sound, but I'm looking forward to really dialing in this rig. Got a couple rehearsals coming up that I'm really gonna try to get some tones going. So, but anyway, guys, I'm gonna be posting a video in the not too distant future, just running you through the sounds of this board, showing you what all it can do. I'm looking forward to getting to that. It'll be a good time. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Hopefully this was somewhat helpful when it comes to your next pedal board build. I'm not a professional at this thing at all, so, you know, take some of what I'm saying with a grain of salt, but in general, these are the kinds of things that I do for my own pedal rigs. So jump on down, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.